Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Kayla and it's time to crack into a good book. So today's video is going to be a book haul. I realized I don't think I've done a book haul in a couple of months. So I had been doing such a good job not buying books, and then, I don't know, things like started to go back on sale again, and I kind of wanted to do some like retail therapy. So I have a lot of books to talk about today. So that's exciting. I think some of these I got back in March, and then I think maybe like forgot to include them in my book haul. So I've definitely had some of these for quite some time and kind of just need to show them to you. So first we'll start with books that I won in giveaways or got for free or got as gifts, because that's a like smaller, more contained stack. So the first two books I'll talk about I got through Penguin's rewards program. So it's like every hardback or large paperback I think that you buy gets you 10 points, and then like once you get I think it's 120 points, you get like $30 free of books. So the first book I obtained through that was Batman Nightwalker by Marie Lu. So this is one of these DC Icons books, and you probably can't see. I read Catwoman Soul Stealer a while back and really enjoyed it, so I've been like excited to keep going. And like I noticed like on the spine, you know, how I guess on the side here we have DC Icons, so that's kind of fun. But it's like before he was Batman, he was Bruce Wayne, and I guess these Nightwalkers are terrorizing Gotham City, and Bruce Wayne is next on their list. He's turning 18 and inheriting his family fortune and like getting control, I think, of Wayne Industries. On the way home from a party, he makes an impulsive choice that leads to Arkham Asylum and meets Madeline Wallace, who is some sort of brilliant killer with ties to the Nightwalkers. And she, I guess, only wants to talk to him, and it's like she's the mystery he must unravel. But is he convincing her to divulge her secrets, or is he feeding her the information she needs to bring Gotham City to its knees? So I do like Batman quite a bit, and you know, like I feel like Marie Lu's writing has been a little bit hit or miss for me, but overall I'm excited to keep going with this DC Icon series. I think the next one, assuming that I enjoy this, I think the next one I'd pick up is going to be the Wonder Woman book. But yeah, I'm excited to see how this goes. And then the other book that I obtained through this Penguin Rewards program is Break the Fall by Jennifer Iacopelli, I think. And so this is a gymnastics book, so I should really read this for the Olympics 2020. But our main character, Audrey, says is going to the Olympics. So she had some sort of spinal surgery like a year prior to this, and now she's made the US gymnastics team with her best friend. I guess there's some sort of horrifying news that rips the team apart, and the team is on the verge of collapse. And the one bright spot in training is the new coach's cute son, and it's like, while she probably shouldn't date him until after the games, would it really be the end of the world? So, yeah, I mean, I think this is just generally a gymnastics book set at the Olympics, so this seems perfect for my readathon. I'm definitely excited to actually get to it. And so I think the only book that I've won in a Goodreads giveaway in the past few months is When I Was You by Amber Garza. So this comes out August 25th. I don't know if that's been postponed. But I believe this is a thriller, and our main character Kelly one day gets a call from her son's pediatrician to confirm her upcoming well baby appointment. However, it's like this is a mistake because her son left for college a year ago, and she's been feeling like pretty lonely, I guess. But apparently there's another mother in town with the same name, and so the receptionist maybe got their numbers switched. It's like Kelly can't stop thinking about the woman who shares her name, lives in the same town, has a son she can hold, and her whole life ahead of her. And so I think she just like starts to kind of maybe like stalk this other woman. They form some sort of friendship, and this gives Kelly a renewed sense of purpose. And then yeah, it's like, but that friendship quickly turns to obsession, and when one Kelly disappears, well, the other Kelly may know why. So yeah, that sounds pretty creepy and pretty awesome. So then I have a few books that people bought for me as gifts, so thank you very much. So the first one is Race the Sands by Beth Durst, and so Kat from Brews and Reviews bought this for me, so yeah, thank you. So I've read the Queens of Renthia series by this author before and really enjoyed it, and this seems to be, I believe, just like a standalone adult fantasy that's essentially just like desert monster racing. I talked about this, I think, a few months ago when it came back, but basically it's like you are kind of reborn in this world, and like however you lead your life kind of determines what you'll be reborn as. So like the really shitty people. There's no redemption. You come back as a monster and you're doomed to be this monster for the rest of time unless you can win these races. So one of our main characters is a professional trainer, and she's trying to get this prize money to prevent the local temple from taking her daughter away, and so she has to obviously like get a winning monster and a promising rider to win this. And then we have our other main character who is going to be obviously this writer, and she's trying to get away from her domineering family and cruel fiance. So I think they get a new monster, but it's like, you know, he has the potential to win if he can be tamed. So yeah, I'm super excited to read this. Again, I've really enjoyed books by this author before. The next book that I got as a gift is The Goblin Emperor by Katherine Addison. So Justine from I Should Read That bought this for me, which was very nice, thank you. I'm super excited to read this. I've like looked at this for actual years and just like hadn't gotten it. So I'm very excited to finally get to this. So our main character is half goblin and is the youngest son of the emperor. So he has lived his life in exile, away from this imperial court and the intrigue, but then his father and 3 half-brothers end up dying in an airship crash, and so our main character is obviously next in line, I think, for the throne. So it's like life in the capital is a bewildering and exhausting daily test of his mettle. He discovers that his family's death was no accident and was actually murder. It's like with no friends, no advisors, and no schooling in the art of court politics, the only thing our main character knows for certain is that whoever was behind the assassinations must still be plotting an attempt on his life. So yeah, that sounds fantastic, and I'm really excited to actually finally read this. The next book that was a gift, and this is from Desiree at Libri Labra on Twitter, I believe. This is The Boyfriend Project by Farrah Rochon. So I did talk about this, I think, in my June releases video, but this is a fun sounding rom-com where our main character has basically finds out that she's been catfished by a 3-timing jerk of a boyfriend. So she bonds with his 2 other girlfriends, and this story goes viral. And so they're basically making a pact to spend the next 6 months investing in themselves, no men and no dating, and so she starts to develop this app that she's just like always dreamed about creating. And of course she meets like a very attractive man at work, and it's like, is he really boyfriend material, or is he maybe just a little too good to be true? So I'm super excited to read this. It sounds just like so fun, and you know, it's always nice to read about women in STEM fields. So now we get into the books that I have bought for myself. So there's a lot of these. I'm just gonna go in in just like a random order, as you know, there's this gigantic stack. So the first book I'll talk about is Ghoster by Jason Arnopp. So I had read The Last Days of Jack Sparks a couple months ago, I think, by this author, and really enjoyed it. So I wanted to try out his other book. And so I think this is, again, just like a horror book that kind of explores the use of social media in some sense. Our main character, Kate, has been ghosted. She was supposed to be moving in with her new boyfriend, but basically she just finds this empty apartment. He's just completely gone. All of his possessions are gone except for his cell phone. So it's like she knows she shouldn't hack into his phone. She shouldn't look at his Tinder profile, call history, social media accounts, but she can't help herself. So then she starts getting strange whispering phone calls from numbers she doesn't recognize. There's scratch marks on the walls that she can't explain, and the growing feeling that she's being watched. I've heard, I think, that this one isn't quite as good. Like in Jack Sparks, the main character is definitely unlikable, but he's meant to be unlikable. But I think here, I don't know if this main character is also meant to be unlikable, but I've heard she's definitely like a little irritating at times. But yeah, you know, like I really enjoy just like, again, social media in books, and particularly when it's paired with horror, that gets really interesting. So I'm super curious to see how this one goes. The next book I'll talk about is The Hanged Man by K.D. Edwards. So this is the second book in the tarot sequence, and so I actually just finished reading The Last Sun, which is the first book in the series. Not even halfway through the book, I was like, yes, I'm going to love this, I'm going to need the second book. So I went ahead and ordered it, but this is kind of like, this is an urban fantasy series that there's like major arcana from like the tarot cards. It's hard to describe the world, I guess, but our main character is kind of like this heir to this fallen court, the Sun Court, and in the first book is kind of hired to find this missing heir to this other court. And then here, Rune finds clues to his companions, who like kind of bodyguard, best friend. Rune finds clues to Bran's past on a mission into the ruins of his family estate. And then he has a ward who is going to be nearly kidnapped by the Hanged Man, who is asserting a marriage claim on this ward. Like the Hanged Man's court in general is called the Gallows, and they have an unhealthy interest in necromancy and mutilation magic. So That sounds awesome. That's probably all I'll say about it since it is the second book, but I am really excited to keep going with this. I very much enjoyed the first book, and I need to know more about this world. The next book I'll talk about is The Obsidian Tower by Melissa Caruso. So this actually came in my unplugged book box, so I got a little signed book plate to put in there, so that was exciting. But so this is kind of set in the same world as her Swords and Fire trilogy, which I really loved. It's like a just fantastic fantasy with some romance, and there's like political intrigue and schemes and fun magic and stuff, but this takes place a bit later and there's like this black tower that's sealed by ancient magic and guarding a dangerous secret that has been contained for thousands of years. So our main character has the ability, I can't remember exactly what her magic does, but it kind of like disrupts things. And I think she actually accidentally kills someone and then has to band together with a group of people. And essentially, it's like nothing must unseal the door. And then I think at some point she unleashes this threat that's in the tower that could doom the world to fall to darkness. So yeah, I mean, I'm super excited to read this. I love the Swords of Fire trilogy again, so I can't wait. The next book I'll talk about is A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. So I talked about this, I guess, this month in the June releases. I don't know what time is anymore. One of our main characters is trying to escape his war-stricken home and start a new life with his sisters in this desert city, but a vengeful spirit abducts his youngest sister as payment to enter the city, so he strikes a deal with it to kill the crown princess in exchange for his sister's freedom. Her main female character, this princess who he's supposed to kill, like her mother has been assassinated, the court is threatening mutiny, and she's going to try to resurrect her mother through ancient magic that requires the beating heart of a king. So she is basically like running this competition at this festival in order to marry the winner and then kill him. So that sounds great. Obviously, they're trying to both kill each other, but also, you know, they eventually become attracted to each other and there's some sort of ancient evil stuff. I'm super excited to read this. I've heard really great things about it. The next book I'll talk about is The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter. So I've been debating about reading this for like since it came out, and finally I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. This is not the most descriptive back cover, but this is basically described as Game of Thrones meets Gladiator, and I think it's like an African-inspired world that has magic, dragons, demons, and curses. The world is caught in an eternal war. One man will have become his people's only hope for survival. So that's really all that says. I don't entirely remember what else is about this, but I've heard a lot of really positive things, so you know, I'm excited to give it a shot. The next book I'll talk about is American Demon by Kim Harrison. So this is a return to The Hollows. So yeah, welcome back to The Hollows, which is an urban fantasy series that I've been reading since like middle school. So long-running series. I talked about this in my June releases video as well, but basically, since events of the last book, our main character has kind of discovered that things maybe went a little bit wrong. It's like the same axe you and your friends took to forge new powers might have released something bound by the old. So we've got some zombies, murders, and mysterious demon in town. So Rachel, our main character, is going to have to do everything she can to counter this new threat to the world, and it could demand the sacrifice of what she holds most dear. So yeah, I mean, that's a little vague, but again, this is like, I think there were like 13 or something books in the original series, and now we're returning to that, so obviously I don't want to spoil stuff, but I'm super excited to get back into this. I really enjoy the Hollow series as a whole. We've got like witches, demons, elves, a whole bunch of really cool stuff, and it takes place in Cincinnati, so that's just fun. The next book I'll talk about is Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. So this is the sequel to Foundry Side. I don't know why I haven't read this yet. This is kind of like a fantasy series where like there's sentient objects, and our main character can kind of like communicate with these objects, and in the first book it's kind of like a bit of a heist, I guess, and then here the first of these like legendary like god beings is going to be reborn, and he's basically used the magic of scribing. So this is like the magical ability of giving objects sentience. So he's convinced reality that he was something more than human. He was basically like a god for centuries, and our main character has to stop him. To have a chance in the battle to come, she'll have to call upon a god of her own and unlock the door to a scribing technology that can change what it means to be human. So I really love Foundry Side, and I'm very excited to continue the series with Shorefall. The next book I'll talk about is Blood of Empire by Brian McClellan. So this is the third book in the Gods of Blood and Powder trilogy, and this is like the follow-up trilogy to the Powder Mage trilogy, which I've really enjoyed. The Powder Mage trilogy is really good, but I feel like this follow-up trilogy is somehow even better. In this world, you have different types of magic, so there's like kind of more like this normal elemental magic, there's kind of a blood magic, and then there's this powder mage ability where people can like snort gunpowder basically and have heightened abilities and be able to like control where bullets go and things like that. We've got these like godstones, which are really powerful objects, and one of our main characters is trying to prevent a group of people from using it. One of our other main characters is trying to invade a country, but then a storm scatters his fleet, so he's supposed to, he doesn't obviously have very many people left with him, so he's forced to rely on brains rather than brawn. And then finally our other main character is trying to march on a place at the head of one of the armies, trying to seek vengeance, and we've got like some politics and generals trying to stop her. But this is just like a really great Flintlock fantasy series, and I'm really excited to finally finish this up. The next book I'll talk about is The Fated Sky by Mary Robinette Kowal. So this is the second book in the Lady Astronaut series, and this is the sequel to The Calculating Stars. So basically in these books, there was like an asteroid that kind of like demolished the east coast of the US, and people are now trying to like race to be able to like colonize the moon and just like outer space in general, because the Earth will become uninhabitable in a little bit. So this continues this alternate history. We're in 1961 now, and there is an established colony on the moon. So our main character is working on rotation, flying shuttles back and forth to the moon and Earth. Humanity must get a foothold on Mars now. So this first exploratory mission is being planned, and none of the women astronauts is on the crew list. This international airspace coalition is worried about sending their lady astronauts because it's super dangerous, of course. But it's like the problem with that is the need for mid-journey navigation calculations. So these new electronic computational machines are not reliable and not easily programmed. There's going to have to be a human computer on board, and all of these computers are women. So yeah, I'm very excited to see how this goes. Obviously, I love this whole it's kind of like loosely based on history where there were actually like women being these like calculators. Obviously, I love reading about women who are really good at math, and space exploration is an added bonus. I'm very excited to continue the series. The next book I'll talk about is Split Feather by Deborah A. Wolfe. So this is kind of like a random pickup. This is the first book, I think, in an urban fantasy series that I've never heard of before, so I'm obviously excited about giving this a shot. So our main character sees demons and talks with creatures she knows aren't really there. So she was taken by her family as a child and has memories of abandonment, abuse, and mental health issues. She suffers from a hot temper, cluster headaches, caffeine addiction, and terminal foul language. She evidently ends up saving the life of a talented assassin who is sent to kill her. She goes to Alaska to find out who she really is, and the answer is more fantastic than she could have imagined. So I feel like there's some sort of like Norse mythology element to this. I could be misremembering that, but I'm excited to see how this goes. The next book I'll talk about is The Silence of Bones by June Hur. So this is a YA urban fantasy, maybe, or thriller, historical thriller, I'm not exactly sure. So this is 1800, I think this is in Korea. So our main character is an orphan, and she's living out the ancient curse, may you live in interesting times. So she's indentured to the police bureau and must assist an inspector with the politically charged investigation into the murder of a noblewoman. As they uncover this dead woman's secrets, she ends up forming a friendship with this inspector, and then, her loyalty is tested when he becomes the prime suspect, and she's the only one capable of discovering what truly happened on the night of the murder. So it's like in a land where silence and obedience are valued above all else, curiosity can be deadly. So I've heard really great things about this, and it sounded awesome. The next book I'll talk about is The Night Country by Melissa Albert. So this is the sequel to The Hazelwood, and I had been like waffling on whether or not to get this, and finally I did decide to go ahead and pick it up. So this is kind of like a dark fairy tale type book series, I guess. So basically here we've got our main character, and the rest of the dregs of the fairy tale world have washed up in New York City. She learns that something is stalking these people and suspects that their death may have darker purpose. Back in the hinterland, one of our other characters is trying to find a way back home. You basically get more dark fairy tales. I've heard that the sequel isn't nearly as good, so I'm gonna go in with like tempered expectations. But I think like the strong point of the Hazelwood for me was just like learning about all these really dark fairy tales. And I feel like I could be making this up. I thought there was maybe going to be just like an actual story collection of these dark fairy tales, but I could be confusing that with something else. Nope, it looks like it coming January 2021. Look at that. Yep, okay, I was right. I'm not crazy. The next book I'll talk about is Ransacker by Emmy Laybourne. So this is the sequel to Berserker, which I read in November, I think, and it's kind of like a, I don't know, Vikings meets Little House on the Prairie, I think. So this is now in 1886. We've got our main family, and they have supernatural powers that were bestowed upon their family by the ancient Norse gods. So our youngest sibling discovers that she's a ransacker, so she can find gold and other precious metals and pull them to her. So they've been living in Montana. Uh-oh. The young man courting our youngest sibling is secretly a Pinkerton spy, reporting to the man who wants to control them. So she's also caught the attention of the local mine owner, who thinks that she just has like this really lucky touch when it comes to finding gold. Harnessing her powers could bring great fortune or cause this powerful dude who's after them to come hunting their family once and for all. So I did enjoy Berserker, so I'm excited to return to this world. The next book I'll talk about is Deathless Divide by Justina Ireland. So this is the sequel to Dread Nation, which is kind of this alternate history, Civil War era, where basically like there were zombies that came out of the Civil War, and so we've got like people who hunt them. So I really loved Dread Nation, and I have been meaning to read Deathless Divide for a while now, but like for some reason I think I had like marked it as want to read on Goodreads, but like didn't update it on my list of like books to buy or whatever, so I don't know. So that kind of like fell through the cracks, but I finally got a copy of it. So our main character is trying to head west to California to find her mom, and she's been trained in like hunting zombies. This village I think that she's going to is not what it appears, and so our main character is like caught between mysteries and lies, the undead, and her own inner demons. She soon finds herself on the dark path of blood and violence that threatens to consume her, but she's not alone. So we've got, you know, a friend companion going along with her. So yeah, I really liked Dread Nation, and I'm very excited to see where this story goes. The next book I'll talk about is Death in the Family by Tessa Wegert. And I talked about this a few months ago. This is a closed circle murder mystery. And let's see, 13 months ago, our main character barely survived being abducted by a serial killer, and she's a former NYPD detective. She's trying to obviously like leave this behind, and so she's taken a job in her fiance's hometown in upstate New York. There's a storm on the way, and so she and a fellow investigator receive a call about a young man who's missing on his wealthy family's private island, and they go and discover blood at the scene, and like the house is full of family and friends on edge. So this other investigator thinks that it's just like a runaway case, but our main character thinks it's actually a murder. So she's, you know, conducting interviews, discovers that basically everyone has some secrets, and they're trapped on the island because of the storm. If she's right, there's a killer in their midst, and as the pressure mounts, so do the odds that they'll strike again. So yeah, I love closed circle murder mysteries, and I've been meaning to get to this for a bit, so I finally picked it up. The next book I'll talk about is Honor Lost by Rachel Caine and Anna Guerra. So this is the third book in this, whatever series this is. So I do have the second book that I haven't read yet, but Amazon had like a buy two, get the third free sale, and I saw that this was included, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed the first book. I probably will enjoy the second, so I may as well pick up the third. So this kind of is like a sci-fi series that reminds me a bit of like the same tone and a lot of the same themes, I think, as Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. So here there's like some sort of life killer that's a creature that can devour entire planets. I don't want to try to like spoil things for myself because I haven't read the second book, but I guess there's battles, and their allies are kind of like wounded and need to like kind of try to form a plan. So I think they're just like trying to save the entire galaxy, and that's all I'll say about that. So I don't spoil anything for myself as well, but I really enjoyed the first book, Honor Among Thieves, and I'm definitely excited to continue this trilogy. The next book I'll talk about is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. So I talked about this again a few months ago. This is, I think, supposed to be like a really nice, feel-good fantasy book. Our main character is a caseworker in the department in charge of magical youth. He's summoned by extremely upper management to travel to an orphanage on a distant island and determine whether these 6 magical children are actually like as dangerous as they seem. There's a variety of mysterious figures, including the master of the orphanage. and this guy is trying to do like anything to keep the children safe, even if it means the world has to burn, or worse, his secret comes to light. So I think this is a love story and like a found family type of story, so it sounds just lovely, and I'm excited to read it. The next book I'll talk about is Exhalation by Ted Chiang. So Angela from Literature Science Alliance recently read this, and I had like seen this again as part of the buy two get the third free sale. I was like, okay. But this is the guy who wrote the short story that inspired the movie Arrival, which I really enjoyed. So this is just a collection of sci-fi short stories, I believe. So there's some stories that's like, there's one that's about a portal through time, forcing a fabric seller in ancient Baghdad to grapple with past mistakes and second chances. We've got an alien scientist making a shocking discovery with ramifications that are literally universal. There's some alternate universes and kind of examining free will. So yeah, it just sounds wonderful. And the next book I'll talk about is Beach Read by Emily Henry. So I think this is a romance where one of our characters is an acclaimed author of literary fiction, and then our other main character is a romance writer. And so obviously it's like when she pens Happily Ever After, he kills off his entire cast. So obviously they're polar opposites. However, they're going to be, for the next 3 months, living in neighboring beach houses, broken, bogged down with writer's block. So they end up like striking a deal to force themselves to write more, I think. So it's like this dude who is this literary fiction writer must write something happy, and our female character must write the next great American novel. So she'll take him on field trips worthy of any rom-com montage, and he'll take her to interviewing surviving members of a backwoods death cult. Everyone will finish a book and no one will fall in love, really. So that sounds really cute. Seems like a fun summer read. Even though I'm not going anywhere, I can pretend that I'm at the beach. The next book I'll talk about is Bird Box by Josh Malerman. So this is obviously the book that inspired the movie, which I have not seen, so I definitely want to read the book first. But it's a horror book, and like basically it's like something terrifying that must not be seen. So if you see it, you're driven to deadly violence. Nobody knows what it is or where it came from. So this is 5 years after this has happened, I guess. We've got a handful of scattered survivors, and we follow Mallory and her 2 children, I think. You know, it's like the journey ahead will be terrifying. 20 miles downriver in a rowboat, blindfolded, one wrong choice and they will die, and something is following them. That sounds like a fun horror book. The next book I'll talk about is The Shadow State by Gareth Hanrahan. This is the sequel to The Gutter Prayer, which I read last month, a couple months ago, I don't know, and really loved, so I definitely wanted to continue this. It's like the Gutter Prayer was the one that I was like talking about, like the evil Lumiere, and there's like a whole bunch of like really crazy creatures that's like really dark and just like a really excellent high fantasy book. It's like the God's War draws ever closer and tensions within this city escalate. So how long will these people be able to keep their enemies at bay? So that's basically all it says on the back of the book. But, you know, I loved the first book and I definitely wanted to keep going with it. The next book I'll talk about is The Name of All Things by Jen Lyons. So this is the sequel to The Ruin of Kings, which I read, I think, before I started BookTube. And I've been meaning to read this for a bit now and just hadn't. So this is a high fantasy series, and our main character is a wanted man. He is essentially, in the first book, he has done some things and is kind of on the run from the entire empire, and he ends up encountering this mysterious woman who claims to know him. So it's like her plea for help pits him against all manner of dangers, a secret rebellion, a dragon capable of destroying an entire city, and his old enemy who is a wizard. There's going to be this discussion of an artifact, which is the cornerstone called The Name of All Things. If that is actually true, that this dude has this artifact, it's like there may be nothing in the world that could stop him from getting what he wants, and what he wants is our main character. So I definitely enjoyed the first book, and I've been meaning to continue the series, so now I can. The next book I'll talk about is Aurora Burning by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. So this is the sequel to Aurora Rising, which is a YA sci-fi book. And in the first book, they basically like encounter Aurora, who is like stuck in cryo sleep for I think centuries or something like that. And we've got like an unlikely kind of cast of characters in this like flight squadron. Here we've got an ancient evil that's about to be unleashed, and our squad is standing by to save the day, but they have to take care of some distractions first. We've got a group of people with creepy flowers where their eyes are supposed to be, who are trying to capture Aurora or Ori, And then we've got a long-lost sister of one of the characters. Half of the known galaxy is on their tails. They learn that this colony ship has been found, I guess, and this is the ship that had vanished and leaves Ori as its sole survivor. It's like now its black box might be what saves them, and so we've got people needing to like master their powers and stuff, and shocking revelations, bank heists, mysterious gifts, inappropriately tight bodysuits, and an epic firefight will determine the fate of the Aurora Legion's most unforgettable heroes. So yeah, I really liked the first book. I've heard mixed things about this one, but I'm excited to try it out for myself. The next book I'll talk about is Kindred by Octavia Butler. So Angela, I had been talking about this with Angela from Literature Science Alliance, and she's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure you're gonna love that. And then like I talked to a few more people about this, including Rhea from the Book Finch on Twitter, and I was like, okay, you've all convinced me, I'm gonna get it. This is a sci-fi book, and our main character is a modern black woman, and she's celebrating her 26th birthday with her new husband, and is snatched abruptly from her home and transported to the antebellum South. And so the white son of a plantation owner is drowning, and she's been summoned to save him. She's drawn back repeatedly through time to the slave quarters, and each time the stay grows longer, more arduous, and more dangerous until it's uncertain whether or not her life will end long before it has a chance to begin. So that sounds super cool. I'm very excited. Like, I've never read any Octavia Butler. I guess I had been like kind of nervous about her books because I feel like it's, I don't know, like these modern classics in sci-fi, and I'm very like, I seem to be like really picky about my sci-fi, but this sounds definitely like something I would enjoy. The next book I'll talk about is A Bad Day for Sunshine by Durand Jones. So this is, she's the author of the Charlie Davidson series, which I've talked about before on my channel, but I really enjoyed it, and like I enjoy her writing in general. But this is a new series, and I think it's just like a thriller type book. And so this takes place in New Mexico, and our main character has returned to town as the elected sheriff. And basically, like, this is kind of like a sleepy old town, so she doesn't really expect that her job will be all that much. But then we have this teenage girl who's missing. There's a kidnapper on the loose. There's trouble at her daughter's new school. There's a kidnapped prize-winning rooster named Puff Daddy, and it's like the forecast looks anything but sunny. And then we have our love interest. I think it's like her sexy, almost old flame, fiery hot U.S. Marshal. So obviously, like, she's trying to track down this kidnapper and try to not fall in love. So that sounds just like a really fun summer read, and like it takes place in the Southwest, so obviously I love that, so I'm excited to try this out. The next book I'll talk about is The Lady Rogue by Jen Bennett. So this is one that I had my eye on for a bit and finally just got a copy. So this is a YA fantasy, like a historical fantasy, I think, or maybe just like a historical fiction book, I'm not sure. I guess our main character is the daughter of a treasure hunter. Her father's protege, and I guess once upon a time love interest of our main character, arrives from an expedition without her father and is trying to get her to help him rescue her father. They have her father's travel journal, and they learn that her father had been digging up information on this legendary magical ring that once belonged to Vlad the Impaler, who's the real life Dracula. And it may just be the key to finding them. So they go into Romania, and there's an adventure through Gothic villages and dark castles and the misty Carpathian mountains, and they're trying to get this ring, but obviously, like, other people are searching for it as well. There's some sort of occult society with a powerful link to Vlad Dracula himself, who wants it too, and they would go to any lengths to possess it. So that sounds like a fun, I don't know, historical adventure, so I'm excited to try it out. The next thing I'll talk about is Injustice 2 Volume 4. So I've enjoyed both Injustice and Injustice 2, and it's basically like this alternate timeline where Superman kind of like has had some things happen to him, and like Metropolis gets destroyed, and like he kind of takes control of the entire world. So Batman and other heroes oppose him. I guess in this particular one, Batman leads his team to this abandoned Fortress of Solitude to try to free the Teen Titans from their years-long exile in the Phantom Zone. However, the fortress is not actually abandoned, and more than just the Titans are about to escape. So, yeah. I've enjoyed this so far, and I decided to pick up the next volume. The next thing I'll talk about is just Thor Who Holds the Hammer. So this is the second installment of this female Thor series. The first one was Thor, Goddess of Thunder. So here Odin is trying to get Mjolnir back and is trying to uncover who this new female Thor is. You know, we've got tensions flaring between the All-Mother and the All-Father. We've got Malekith, the Dark Elf, who is forging his most dangerous pact yet. I guess our new Thor must face the Destroyer. Some sort of unexpected character makes a shocking return, and the new Thor's identity is revealed at last, though. Like, I actually know who it is, so it's not going to be that much of a reveal, but I won't say anything. So yeah, I definitely really enjoyed the first volume, and I wanted to continue it. And then to follow up with that, I also got the first volume of The Mighty Thor, Thunder in Her Veins, so I think that this is like, I think that there was like this particular run of comics was just like literally these two, and then this was maybe in like 2014 or something, and then this starts up in like 2015 that continues the story. I don't know, we'll find out. But our new Thor is facing some medical issues, I think, and we've got Loki, and then Malekith is trying to like start this war of realms, and Asgard is being torn apart. So definitely excited to keep going with this. Obviously, like, I need to read this other Thor who holds the hammer first, but I want to, it seems like something I'm going to really enjoy, so I definitely want to keep going with it. The next book I'll talk about is Finder by Suzanne Palmer. So this is a sci-fi book, and our main character is Fergus Ferguson, and he's been called a lot of names: thief, con artist, and repo man, but he prefers the term finder. So he's supposed to find the spacecraft and steal it back from an ex-nobleman turned power-hungry trade boss. So he finds this ex-nobleman and a ship in the farthest corner of human-inhabited space in this backwater deep space colony. There's some sort of cable car explosion that launches this colony into civil war, and so he has to ally with this ex-nobleman's enemies to navigate a field of space mines and a small army of hostile mercenaries. This was supposed to be an easy job, but instead it turns into negotiating a power struggle between factions, and he becomes invested in the lives of the locals. There's some sort of dangerous alien species that he thought was mythical that turns out to be actually real, and there's some sort of ominous triangle ships that keep following him around. So that sounds super cool. I've heard really great things about the series, and I'm excited to try it out. The next book I'll talk about is Hula Girl by Lara Ward Cossio. So this is a romance, and basically it takes place on Maui, and so I was like, yeah, I need this. Our main character is a lawyer, and she's forced to take a vacation to a tropical paradise. And she's basically unable to tear her mind away from her cases, and she's counting down the days until she can go back to work, until she meets this dude, and he's a surfer. So, like, obviously they don't really have much in common, but they have this attraction to each other, and they're forced to go back into the real world lives, and then end up coming face to face again with a surprise reunion that takes a turn when he asks her to help him out by playing along with this fake engagement. And then it's like she soon finds herself wondering if either of them are pretending after all. So yeah, that sounds like a fun beach romance, and I love that it's at least partly set on Maui, so hopefully it's good. The next book I'll talk about is Wild at Heart by K. Tugger. So this is a sequel to The Simple Wild, which I read some amount of months ago and really loved. Our main character, Kala, is returning to Toronto as like a different person, and she's trying to find her way in life, but like still very much has feelings for the guy she left behind. He comes back and is like, arrives with a proposition she can't dismiss, and so she goes back to Alaska with him. However, I think it's like the compromise comes with a hefty price, a log cabin in rural Alaska that feels as isolating as the western tundra. I guess he's gone more than he's home. A neighbor is like trying to get her to become a true Alaskan, and so she's like trying to find her own way in the world, and like I think kind of like balance what she wants in life with her love interest. So yeah, I'm really excited to continue this story. The next book I'll talk about is The Book of Second Chances by Katherine Slee. So this came in some unplugged book box. I don't remember what. I think this is a contemporary book. So our main character is like, she can't remember the last time she left her neighborhood or spoke to anyone besides her grandma, who's a beloved children's author. I guess her grandma dies. Our main character doesn't really like know what to do, but she then receives a letter, I think, from her grandma. And it's like this grandma reveals that there might be one last lost, unpublished manuscript in her wildly popular series. So we've got this secret diary and some cryptic book dedications. So our main character is traveling around the world to retrace her grandma's past and discovers more about her family and stuff, and I guess in search of this book. So that sounds actually like really enjoyable, so I'm curious to give this a shot. The next book I'll talk about is Weave the Lightning by Corey L. Lee. So this also came in an unplugged book box some amount of months ago. This is a fantasy. One of our main characters, I think, is the son of a general, and he has this storm affinity and has been like really trained, but he still can't control his magic. So he ends up running away in order to escape some brutal consequences, I think, of not being able to control his magic. And then our other main character is a traveling circus performer, and she's hiding her link to the underground and her storm affinity from the secret police. However, this other guy's arrival kind of threatens to expose everything. Like the storms have returned and everything will change. So that sounds awesome. You know, romance, revolution, elemental magic. Yeah, that sounds pretty great. The blurb up here is like a Russian accented the night circus. So we'll see how this goes. And finally, the last book I'll talk about is The Girl in the Stars by Mark Lawrence. So this is the first book of the Ice, and this is set in the same world as the Book of the Ancestor trilogy, which I really enjoyed. This is an adult fantasy, except, you know, we're in a different part of the world. We're out on the ice, and there's a hole into which broken children are thrown, which is called the Pit of the Missing. Our main character, I think, is kind of drawn to this pit. You know, it's like to resist the cold, to endure the months of night when even the air itself begins to freeze requires a special breed, and so any sort of like variation is dangerous and difference is fatal, and so our main character is not the same. So she ends up, I think, being torn away from the life that she's known, away from her family and like her love interest, and has to like set a new path for herself. And she learns that her weaknesses are another kind of strength, and that the cruel arithmetic of survival that has always governed her people can be challenged. So yeah, I really enjoyed the Book of the Ancestor trilogy, and I definitely want to continue this continue in this world. And oh my god, I'm so tired of talking. That was a lot of books. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books or think you might pick them up. For your question of the day, let's go with, what books have you been meaning to get to for forever that you just haven't yet? Because there are a lot of them in this particular book haul. So anyway, I hope you're having an excellent day and are reading something awesome. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, because that would certainly help me out. But with that, I think I'm going to wrap it up here and see you in the next one.